7. We are living, we are dwelling in a grand and awful time, in an age on ages telling, to be living is sublime. Hark the waking up of nations, God can make up to the fray. Hark what soundeth His creation, running for today. Christian, rouse and arm for conflict, nervy for the battlefield. Bear the helmet of salvation and the mighty gospel shield. Let the breastplate peace be on thee. Take the Spirit sword in hand. Boldly, fearlessly go forth and in Jehovah's strength to stand. And the prince of evil spirits, great deceiver of the world, he who welcomed blessed Jesus, worms and deadly weapons hurled, cometh with unwonted power, knowing that his reign will cease, when the kingdom shall be given to the mighty Prince of Peace. Christian, rouse, fight in this warfare, cease not till the victory's won, till your captain Lord proclaim them, servant of the Lord well done. He alone with us is faithful, who abideth to the end. Let the balance in the kingdom and eternity to spend. Amen. I'll now turn it over to Pastor Lloyd Grubb.
Just use the camera is on.
Okay.
All right, don't switch to the other camera, all right? So don't use the top camera. This is the camera that's on. All right? Good evening again, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Too strange. I'm used to by 5 o'clock because I'm saying good evening to myself. All right, so this evening we start a new series. I have 10 presentations that I'll be sharing on prophecy. 10 presentation on prophecy for this quarter. And I started by doing Daniel 2, which is, don't walk away, Daniel 2, no, I'm joking. Daniel just walked by. So Daniel 2, which is basic, I'm going to do a basic introduction. And I kind of just say this because it's 10 presentations, so we're going to wrap this up real fast by next Sabbath. But I kind of struggle with what exactly to start out with Daniel chapter 2 and how to go into this. So I decided we're going to go straight into Daniel 2, and we're going to go basic into difficult. So with that, I'll just bow our heads here. I won't even try to switch camera. I'll bow our heads to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you again for the blessings of today, for the blessings of rest, and for the blessings, dear Lord, of knowing Thee. As we see, we are living in times that are very important, dear Father, for the closing off of the work of this earth. May you bless us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. So Daniel chapter 2 is what we're looking at here. I'm just going to go and I'm doing what I would call a basic review of Daniel chapter 2. I decided to just do the whole review because there's a few points I want to point out that will be important in the next upcoming weeks when it come on to Daniel. So Daniel chapter 2 is what we're looking at. We're looking at global kingdoms here. And we start off, I'm just going to go through the I'd probably say I can do it within half an hour. Just the cursory introduction of Daniel chapter 2. So Daniel chapter 2, and we start by reading verse 1. And it says here, and in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, um, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, which his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. So we have the introduction of Daniel chapter 2, all right? And the introduction is that Nebuchadnezzar is having a dream. And again, he's faced with a dream, and the dream that he's faced with, it troubles him, and he cannot, not again, but he's faced with this dream now that Daniel is going to answer for him, and he cannot understand the dream. But the dream is important, similar to what happened in Daniel 1. There's going to be important things that happen. So Daniel 1 is the test of Daniel and his friends when it comes on to coming to a new kingdom and having an opportunity to bless the king. Daniel 2 now, he has this dream, and the king has a dream, but the dream is left him. But the dream has something to do with he being a ruler forever. And I'm going to point it out later, so I'm thinking ahead. I'll get my bearings here in a second. So Daniel 2 verse 2 through 3 says, Then the king commanded and called the magician and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servant the dream, and we will show the interpretation. So Daniel asks the wise men. The wise men now, important to note that the wise men are the sorcerers, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, the magicians. Now keep that in mind, because normally somebody could read this and they figure that these are the scientific mind of that age, right? So these are the scientific mind of that age, and is dealing with the scientific mind of that age, and they are basically, how would I say this? They're there to answer certain questions. And to this day, we have the same setup. And make no doubt about it, because I think we can get thrown off with the words magician, astrologers, sorcerers, and Chaldeans. Today, if you have a puzzling dilemma that you have to deal with, the puzzling dilemma, how will you deal with it? You will deal with it by bringing in the magician and the sorcerers and the astrologers. Now, somebody said, no. Now, what you do, you're going to bring in people from NASA, you're going to bring people from the National Institute of Health, you're going to bring in people from the various different scientific communities and bodies, and they're going to basically give you the answer to the question. So if you have a puzzle, those are the people you will go to. So this is the same setup today, right? So in any realm, that's the reasonable thing to do. But here comes something different. And the king said unto them that I have a dream, right? So the dream he has, he doesn't remember the dream, as you know the story. And he needs to understand what does a dream mean, because remember, they're very superstitious, if you want to call it, or they believe in supernatural things. So the supernatural things that they believe in cause him to believe that this dream has significance. Now, as by the time we come to the end, we'll know why the dream is significant for him, and that the dream has something to do with what was going on in his mind. And if I can get back to the first slide here, it said wherewith his spirit was troubled by it. So he couldn't remember it. He broke his sleep, his spirit troubled by it. So this is significant. And this, I would say, is no different from what we deal with today. There's many people whose sleep is breaking from them. There's many people today who they want to have answers to what's going on. Now notice here, he knows this is significant, and we know it is significant because Nebuchadnezzar has future thinking like all of us. Notice the king answered and said unto the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If ye will make not known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye will be cut in pieces, and your house shall be made a dunghill. So he says, look, this is very important. I need to have the answer for it. And if you don't give me the answer for it, your house will be destroyed. And verse 6 says, but if ye show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, let the king tell us this his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of. And the king answered and said, I know of certain that you would gain the time, because ye see the thing as gone from me. So here we pause again. I just want to point out this because this is significant for when we come to some of the prophecies that are more current, right? This is laying some very basic key down. There is something that the king wants to do. Now, I'm going to tell you upfront what he wants to do because I don't want to miss this. What the king wants here is that he wants to know what is going to happen to his kingdom, the Babylonian kingdom, after he passes. What's the future of the kingdom? He wants, because he has this idea that we understand from before, that he wants the kingdom to go on forever into perpetuity. He wants the kingdom to last. Now, this is significant. Why is this significant to us? Because remember, what we're doing is looking at prophecy and present truth and how it applies to us. This is significant for us because when we look at what is the struggle that we're dealing with right now, we're dealing with Europe and America is trying to figure out how to stay on top and continue being kingdoms in perpetuity. And every kingdom has this type of thing that they deal with. They try to figure out how to make the kingdom last. And this becomes significant if they believe that the kingdom could wane in power and go down because they want the name to live on, right? And so this is the question that God is answering. So I'm going to say up front because we've studied this before, but I want to layer in some ideas here for you, that some old ideas and some new ideas. So notice here, he wants to know what's going to happen because that's what a dream is. No, you know when you know something in the back of your mind but you don't know? Like you know something is nagging you, and then halfway through the day you remember, oh yeah, I went to the store and I forget why I went to the store. I went to the store to buy this thing. Have you ever feel that feeling in your head? Like there's something to tell you something is missing, something is missing, something is missing. And you walk out your house. And then when you reach where you're going, you'll be like, yeah, I remember why I walked my house. I remember why I kept on thinking something is missing. Because my brain was trying to remind me, you need to pick up this bag that was laying somewhere. And I think that's what it is. It's like it's a nagging feeling that this is significant to the thoughts of my heart, right? Now, that's going to come up in a second. So notice here in 9 through 12, 11 first, it says, but if you will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can show me the interpretation. So first he needs them to tell him the dream. So if they tell him the dream, he say, yeah, that's the dream. You know what I'm saying? Like if somebody say to you something, you're like, how you know that, right? And then now, I'll know if you can give me the right interpretation. But if I tell you the dream, then you can tell me an interpretation, and I don't know if you're tricking me. No, that's important because for years, and it might sound unrelated, but for years in my mind, I've been saying like certain things are going to happen that the conspiracy theorists are going to be done, right? There's conspiracy theorists won't work. So I remember when the Las Vegas shooting happened, I said this one going to give the conspiracy theorists a hard time. Because what's going to happen is that this I think that was the first shooting that happened in a more open air. It was totally open, right? In a modern era where they have cell phone. Everybody have a cell phone, and normally people do with a cell phone, they record. So while the shooting is going on, there's going to be like a ton load of cell phone footage, and it's not going to be in a building like Newtown. Can you remember when the shooting happened in Newtown, they said, well, it's not real because it was in a building, so you couldn't see what was going on, right? Then I remember about a year later or so, there was a shooting at a church, right? And I remember when I first went on and they said the church have live stream. So I said, oh, let's see if I can go first and before they delete it and see the live stream video. And what happened, you could see the live stream video, right? Because the church have, so you couldn't say it's in a building, but it's not like some of the places that happen where there's no video. At least this now they were streaming live. And if you're streaming live, not trying to scare none of you, but if somebody come in here and start shooting, it's going to get caught live on camera, right? It's just not going to, it's just, they're going to see me taking the bullets. They're not going to see you guys because there's no camera going this way, right? It's not a good thought, but I'm just saying, right? So if you have that situation, now the conspiracy theorists can't make up stuff, right? They can't come out and say this. Now, the same thing with coronavirus. I've been saying with the coronavirus, so watch what's going to happen. They're going to come out and do all this conspiracy like they used to. And then now, sooner or later, it's going to have to reach down to California. Because see, California produce conspiracy theories. And when you reach there now, what are they going to do? What are they going to say, right? Because now it's there. So you're going to say it's a hoax? It's not going to be a hoax anymore because it's now overwhelming, right? So certain things I believe coming up on the earth is going to be overwhelming that you're not going to be able to explain it away. Does that make sense? And I think this is one of those situations where now he caught them. Or not he caught them, but the Lord took the dream away. But leave him with this nagging feeling like this dream is important. You guys need to give me the interpretation. If you give me interpretation, I'm a dictator. Because this is a dictator, this is a king. I can choose if you guys live or die. Right? And there's no constitution to protect you. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore, there is no king, no a lord, nor ruler that asks such a thing as any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. So, depends on what they're doing. They're looking at a tea leaf. They're looking out into the sky. They're doing various different things to get some explanation for what. Even to this day, the people still read astrology. Astrology have 12 months, and every month, they come out with, if you're born a certain way, whatever. And, they come up with these things to explain who you are, what they do. If you don't know, don't it's not important. And it is a rare thing that the king required, and there is none other than that can show it before the king, except the gods whose dwelling is not what with flesh. So that's a giveaway there, right? Say, yeah, you could get this information, but there's only one group of people or one thing that can give you the information is whatever. So they kind of give it away, so it's out of our hands, right? Now remember, Daniel had dealt with them in Daniel chapter 1, and Daniel had outmaneuvered them, so to speak, in Daniel chapter 1. Now we come over to Daniel chapter 2, and then Daniel was already 10 times wiser, or smarter, or brighter, whatever it is, than all the up-and-coming astrologers, and he says even the ones that were already in the realm. So Daniel to Nebuchadnezzar was already brighter than all of them, right? At least in his mind when he assessed them, he said, look, you guys seem 10 times brighter than these other, that is in my realm. So Daniel had outdo them already, at least in the eyes of Nebuchadnezzar. Here come Daniel again, going to outdo them again, but in a different way, because they already said only God can reveal it. So then it says here, then Daniel answered with the counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to the king's captain, why is the decree hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation, right? So Daniel was going to believe he could show the king the interpretation, right? So we get that, right? Because Daniel here is introduced in Daniel chapter 1 as somebody that knows dreams, or the interpretation of dreams. Then Daniel went, verse 17 now, then Daniel went to the house, to his house, and made the thing known to Ananias, Mishael, Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of God of heaven concerning the secret. So Daniel called them forth, three of them, and the fourth of them went to pray to ask God for wisdom. Then Daniel and his fellows that Daniel and fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. So Daniel's testimony is that he got his wish granted from the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changed the times and the seasons. He removed king and set it up king. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. So what did Daniel understand about God based upon his vision, right? This is what we just read. So notice here real quickly what we get from Daniel if we want to put in a bulleted notes. That the name, it says, blessed be the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and might are his, right? So we understand that one could have knowledge, right? A computer has knowledge. A savant has knowledge. A person with photographic memory have knowledge, and other things like that have knowledge. Flash drives of knowledge. But wisdom is a total different thing. So wisdom is taking that knowledge and that understanding and making choices, right? So notice here, the way God did it to outmaneuver the astrologers so that they can't move to the left or to the right. You wouldn't say it's knowledge and it's understanding, but it's wise, right? It's a very tricky move, if you would say. Very wise as a serpent, harmless of a dove, because he blocked them in. You can't go to this way or to that way. Make sense? So Daniel picked it up and said, you can imagine Daniel and say, wow, that's a smart one there, right? Because you can't get out of it. Notice here, and it changed at the times and the seasons. So what is the vision about? Time and season that is changed. There's a change. Now, do you see a change in the air right now? Right? Do you see a change in the air? All right. What is the change you're seeing? Don't answer me. But what is the change? You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of changes going on, right? A lot of changes. I was watching this when I used to, back in the day, I used to listen to this radio called Family Radio. And there's a guy on there called Pastor something. I can't even remember his name. No, not Camping. Is a Bible guy. But anyhow, all of a sudden his name. So anyhow, I was on YouTube recently and he popped up. And I said, oh, I haven't heard him in years. So I clicked and see, let's see what he was talking about. And he was recording at his church a presentation, by himself. And he's recording by himself and he's there talking. And he said in all his life, because, remember, I was listening to him on the radio back then. He probably was in his 40s or so back then, right? And he says, in all his years of living, he's never seen so much changes happening in one period of time. And we're talking about really in the last 6 months. There's so much stuff has happened. So he said, I've just never seen anything like this. And I'm just thinking, yeah, I've never seen anything like this before. There's a lot of changes. So notice he says he changed at the times and seasons, right? So there's a change happening. Everybody see a change happening. Well, exactly what's happening. And he removed kings. Because remember, the project for the new American century, aim, people like Wilford and Bush, was that they see America declining, and the aim for the Iraq war was to save America from decline. And so they see the change coming, and they were figuring out, let's do this thing here to stop it. And it didn't work. The change is still coming. Because if it's God is making a change, whatever you do, is not going to, you can't stop it. Because remember, what happened in Daniel chapter, am I saying it right, 3? What's the next chapter over where the plain of Dura, right? By the time Nebuchadnezzar like, no, we need a statue, and we need a statue to be what? Gold. We need one element. We don't need a statue with multiple elements. Because what is he going against? He wants to stop the change that God says will happen, right? God is saying, I'm going to take down the kingdom, and I'm going to put another kingdom. All right? You see the problem there? So he sets up kings, and he takes some kings. Notice here, he removed kings, and he set up kings. He gave wisdom unto the what? To the wise, right? And knowledge to them that know understanding. So there's something, Daniel's basically saying, I get this from God, but also I receive it, I catch it. I got it. You see what I'm saying? I got it. He revealed the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. Because what it is that there is this reality that there's tomorrow's darkness. You can't see. You have some general idea what will happen. You know human nature. There's a lot of things you know, but we just don't really know. But God knows. And God does things, and most of the time what we're doing is trying to keep up. Notice in verse 23 through 25. And it says, and I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and hast made known unto me what we desire of thee. For thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter. So whose was the dream about? And who was the dream for? It was for the king, right? Therefore, Daniel went unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men. To destroy wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captive of Judah that will make known unto the king, the interpretation. Right? So he said, look, I'm going to make known the interpretation because this is for a particular reason. Now notice this here now. Daniel 2 verse 26 through 28. Then the king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king had the man cannot the wise men and the astrologers and the magicians and the soothsayers show unto the king. So I pause there. So notice there you have this thing again, where he says, there is this thing where Daniel could just say, I'm going to give you the interpretation, right? Daniel could just say, I'm going to tell you what is about to happen. Is that true? But he said, no, I want to point out that the astrologers couldn't do it. Because that's part of the wisdom, right? Part of the wisdom is that the astrologers couldn't figure it out. All these men there, they couldn't give the answer to it. And Daniel, because that's to me is part of the wisdom of it. It has to be such a thing where it beats their trickery. They're pulling a fast one. Does that make sense? Because God is about to do something. And God is doing something that it can't be, God has to separate and differentiate. You know, I remember in the past when I was studying, like again, coronavirus, I remember I said, more I looked at it and I said, wow, I think this is going to mess up the system because it's not, it cannot be dealt with one nutrient. I remember I came to the conclusion, I said this statement in my mind, we don't have a one nutrient message, we have a health message. You get it? We don't have a one nutrient message, we have a health message. Not going to fix it with whatever. So some things will come and you will say it is a little bit more complicated, but something is going on. So notice in verse 28, but there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets and make it known to the king Nebuchadnezzar, what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the vision of thy head upon thy bed are these. So notice here in the latter days. So remember, when this thing started, Nebuchadnezzar had just started his reign. It's not too far from his starting of reign. He had gone through this, so this must have happened minimum at least 3.5 years or more after Daniel had gone to the working for the king and gone through school and everything like that. So it is somewhere in that period of time. And verse 29, as for thee, O king, thou came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter? And he that revealeth secret things known to thee, what shall come to pass? So, what shall come to pass was the question, right? This was what Nebuchadnezzar wanted to know. And I find it fascinating that I said, this is present truth for me. As I know, many people look at this and thinking this is just basic. But this is present truth only because the major leaders in America and Europe are trying to figure out how to stay on top. If it wasn't that reason, it'd just be a good study, right? A good doctrinal study, you just read this. And I would actually, because I have this structured a separate way where I cut out all of this and I just go straight to verse 31 onward. And I don't even read it. It's not even necessary information. It only becomes necessary in present truth when you understand what is it, all these wars we're doing with all these different countries. Because we're trying to figure out to do what? Stay on top. When you study everything that goes on, when you talk about all these protests going on, what we're protesting, it's not police and brutality we're protesting. We're protesting one group of people trying to stay on top. Now, police brutality become a symptom. You understand what I'm saying? It's like having a headache. Why are you having a headache? because you're probably thirsty. But you could say, I need painkillers. But painkillers is not the problem. The problem is that you need some water. You're dehydrated. So it's the same thing. You see this thing and say, well, why they defunding the school and they're doing this thing and what are all this maneuver? What is the maneuver for? One group of people trying to stay on top and they're trying to hold everybody down. And the more they run into problems staying on top is the more they try to maneuver. So here Nebuchadnezzar, I'm going to read it again for you because somebody said, where do you see this? I'm going to read it again. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter? And he that revealeth secret make known to thee what shall come to pass. Now, somebody said, but that's not in the text. Well, if you'd study the story of the image, 6 by 6 by 6, where we get the mark of the beast, we study it in the future, and what we're going to find that in that story of the plain of Dura, what the king did is made an image and made it of all of gold. Because he says, my kingdom going to last forever. But as we come to the end of Daniel 2 in a few minutes, not a few short minutes, but a few long minutes, what we'll see is that... Just
back up a little bit.
Yeah.
You said that when there's protests, one group is trying to keep down the other.
Yes.
And you said it's in this country. So as we know,
Just listen back and pass on. Make it go. Make it happen. Where's my other mic? Oh, here's the other mic. Here's another mic for you, correct? Right. Just. No. Go ahead. You can make the comment and then I'll repeat. I'll repeat in the meantime.
it's just
That was his mic, the yellow mic. Yeah. All right. Keep rolling.
I forgot what I was going to say.
No, you said the protests because one group is trying to hold another group, so the protests.
Yeah, you see the protests,
Yeah.
and there's protests, and then there's another situation with race. And so at one point in time, do you say, okay, there's protests not only here, but around the world?
Right.
And it's poor, usually, fighting for survival.
Right.
And so we see that there's different countries trying to stay on top. But if you look at the protests, what kind of people are protesting? They're poor. And what kind of people are trying to stay on top? So it looks like to me like countries, and there may be countries, but for me it's more rich and poor. Because if you look at Nebuchadnezzar said, okay, what kind of kingdom? My kingdom. It's not Daniel's kingdom, it's not their kingdom, it's my kingdom. So again, we see like Nebuchadnezzar is going, wow.
Just, Tamar, it's raining hard. I don't know if you... Oh, you did already. Thanks very much. You lock your car is locked? Okay. All right, sorry.
Okay, so I'm just thinking, back then Nebuchadnezzar became very oppressive.
Yes.
So this thing that's going on now, it's not new.
Right.
It's been going on since Nebuchadnezzar's time.
Right.
So that's basically my point. My point is it was rich and poor then, and it's rich and poor now.
Rich, but is who is in charge?
Who's in charge? Right.
Right.
The
so
rich
it's
are in charge. But if you have in charge of the gold and the silver, you make the decisions.
Well, the kingdom is in charge, is over above everybody, and they're oppressing everybody else.
Yeah.
So it's a specific group of people is in charge.
Right.
And in this situation, it's the Babylonians and it's Nebuchadnezzar.
Right.
And he wants to continue being in charge and his people to continue being in charge.
Right.
Right?
Right. But the same situation is now.
Right. So it's always going to be the rich. But who is the rich? It's whoever is in charge.
Whoever, right, right, in charge of controlling the silver and the gold.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but at this point here, no matter how you slice it, it's the Iraqi who were in charge at that time.
Right.
And it's Nebuchadnezzar.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's a fight. So you're protesting, but it's not so much about this, it's about somebody is abusing these people to stay on top.
Right. But let's say somebody else got in charge.
But
They're rich.
But you can't be in charge without being rich.
Right. So it goes back to the same thing, the rich and the poor. This struggle.
Yes, it is a struggle for the rich and the poor, but which rich?
Whoever's in control.
Well, who-
of the gold and silver.
Right, so that's why I say, going back to this, that's when you look at what happened with the Project for the New American Century,
Right.
is that the rich whites who are in charge are trying to stay on top.
Right.
It's just a matter they're rich. In this situation here, Nebuchadnezzar was on top, and he wanted to stay on top.
Yeah.
It's hard for somebody to say, I'm the one that's on top, and I'm the one that's keeping everybody down.
Right. Yeah, I'm just saying that, you know, if you see what's going on in the world, you say, well, Europe and America is trying to stay in charge, and they sort of like going against each other. But I'm wondering, you know, because every struggle you see rich and poor, so it's really the rich,
Well, if you
And-
go to Russia, right, it's the same struggle.
right? But they're rich. It's rich and poor.
It's the oligarchs against everybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
And
But if you go to Jamaica, it would be the oligarchs
Right.
against everybody else.
right.
Right.
I'm just thinking that one day it's all going to be all the rich in the world and all the poor in the world.
The rich going to try to control everything.
Yeah.
But that's the mark of the beast.
Right.
Right.
Eventually. But if you
Okay.
look at the struggle, you would say, oh, it's different countries, different governments, which is true. But but the way I see it is just rich and poor. The struggle is between rich and poor.
I don't think, try it, but I don't think that one is working. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, but that,
At the end of the day, it's just two camps. That's what all I'm saying.
you know what it is? It's almost like if I take it as it's just the rich and the poor, then I would have to stop the study right here. Because then you do not identify who. And if you know what I'm saying.
You don't identify who.
Yeah, because the study is telling you who specifically is at this point.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Right.
But no matter who it is, they're still powerful. They're still the ones with the means.
Okay, I'm gonna have to, because I remember having a conversation on that with Brother Kemet. I just can't remember where we'll get to. It's a long conversation to try to parse that concept out. Keep that concept in mind, and I'm gonna come back to it at the end, because I'm gonna have to get back to that. Because I know what you're saying, but there is a specific. Let's put it this way: it's almost like saying I'm looking outside, the rain is falling. It's important for me to know which is north and which is south.
Yes, sure. Right.
Else I can't explain rain. I need to know where it's coming from.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Because then I'm not going to know what I'm looking at and where it's coming. You know, like, because there's so much of the study we're going to cover, like the king of the north, king of the south.
Okay.
Who's the king of the north, who's the king of the south? It's just not generic. It's specifically this group of
No,
people.
that's important. I think that's important.
Right.
But I'm just
So,
saying, when you do find out that they're rich, then
yeah, but it would, okay. Let me go. So but I'll get back to it. I'll keep it in mind because it's a major part to me, the discussion, right? Because say, for instance, you're part of the rich. There need to be an understanding of how did you get there. So anyhow, let me run along.
Well,
And
just
then I'll
before
get
you
back.
run along, Pastor,
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to share a comment from one of our platforms.
Okay.
Pastor Whiteman notes, and welcome, Pastor Whiteman. Rich black folks are not in charge, especially in the United States. Rich brown folks are not in charge either. The police treat blacks, brown, and the poor whites the same.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because then you could have somebody that is rich but they're not in charge. Like, for instance, China is rich. There's rich white people in China, but they're in charge.
right.
There's rich oligarchs in Russia, they're not in charge. They get under embargo all the time.
Right. Well, yeah, I see what the comment is.
Yeah, because it's
Right,
like there's rich
No, I
oligarchs.
agree. They could be rich, but you can have a different status within the rich. Like there's the one top 0.1%.
Yeah, but you could have an oligarch that is in Russia, that is
Right.
in the top 0 point something percent,
Right,
and he
right.
still could be put under embargo by Europe and America.
Right.
And they did put him on embargo. So you're rich, but you don't have all the power, right? So it's not the same as saying there's a rich billionaire in Africa.
Right.
They're not part of that power class. The power class is specifically Europe and America, and not Europe and America, Black American. You know, Ben Carson is rich, but he's not part of that. No matter what it is, Clarence Thomas is not part of that power class. No matter what he wants for himself, right? Because they still look at him as you are this. So it is to me still specific to Europe and America and the power base. Like, who's the richest people in the world? Somebody said Jeff Bezos and Microsoft, Bill Gates. Not really, not so. There's people been rich from their money being coming from 2,000 years, 1,000 years ago. They have the family lineage and stuff like that. So they're rich in a total different way that most people don't even really. It's hard to, because they're not trading on the stock market. Bill Gates and Bezos, they're trading on the stock market. So I think that's, I've looked at that and I've thought about that hard. And my conclusion is because there's rich and there's powerful. And some people are both, some people are whatever. But there's still a power class that is there that control the world. But that's some of the things I'm going to show in the next few weeks. So that's an interesting question. That's why I started this way. So that's why I was saying they have this presentation two ways. One way, I just jump over this. But it's so important because the point is not the oligarchs that are trying to stay in power per se. There's this specific group of people that are trying to stay in power and they're losing their power. And they say we want to hold on to it. And we will do anything. And ultimately, the Bible said they will do the mark of the beast to hold on to it. They'll basically sell their soul with evangelicals to hold on to it and destroy themselves. So I'm jumping ahead to show what I'm going to show. And this specific group of people are going to do it. Notice here, as for the king, our thoughts say unto my bed, what should come to pass hereafter? So he has all the power at this point, right? So he's the head of gold at this point. There's no question about it. And he's questioning what should happen after. And he that revealeth secret, make it known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation of the king. And thou mightest know the thoughts, notice again, the thoughts of what? Thy heart. So he's thinking about this thing, right? He's thinking about it, and the Lord says, I'm going to reveal to you what is the thoughts on your heart. So it's a thought he's having on his mind. What happened to my kingdom? Notice it says, thou, verse 31 of Daniel 2, thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible, right? Now, the image that I have on the board there is not terrible. It's actually cute, all right? It looks like it should be in a muscle magazine. And it's actually very, I was saying tomorrow, I did it more muscular because I had to stretch the image to fit the screen, the newer screen resolutions. So it made the image more, diesel, let's say. So notice here, the image is, I guess if you look at it as a mutant or one of these action heroes, then it is terrible in this visage, but it looks, nice. This image head was of fine gold. His breasts and his arms were of silver. His belly and his thigh, so two thighs, right? And his stomach area, belly go down, was of brass. And then his leg of iron. And his feet now of part iron and clay, right? So his feet part iron and part clay. So we would normally say probably from the knee down, right, is iron and clay, and before that it was brass, right? So notice verse 34. Then thou sawest still a stone cut out of without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and break them in pieces. So notice here the feet was of iron and clay, and the stone that was come out to cut off the mountain without hands. So if you say without hands, that gives you an indication that it's not man doing it, but who's doing it? God, right? So this is something supernatural. This is something beyond what anybody can do. As I say, I think we're watching that process, that significant process starting to happen. Notice verse 35. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together. Now I pause there because in the future study, what we show in Revelation, that notice it says it's broken together. Now the image is still standing there. The image never went away. Now there's an explanation for this, and I'm going to read part of it in Revelation 13. The whole image is still there. Now somebody will say, is the image still present right now? And the answer is yes. The image is still present right now. Because what it is, each preceding kingdom, as you know, and you've studied this, they absorb the previous kingdoms, concepts into the other kingdom. So Babylon never went away, Media Persia never went away, Greece never went away, Rome never went away, the papacy never went away. And now we have modern Europe and what we call America, and it is a composite of all the kingdoms that were there before. Does that make sense? If it don't make no sense, we'll see it in 1 second. Notice here, it broke them together, right? So we normally could say it only break the feet and the iron or whatever, but it said break everything. It break the gold, it broke everything together because it's one continuous kingdom. And I know I might say that differently. I'll take that back. I won't say it's one continuous kingdom. It's different kingdoms, but they absorb each kingdom previously before. I guess that's the best way to say it. Together. And became like the chaff on the summer threshing floor. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great what? Mountain, and filled the whole earth. Now, Christ is often referred to as a rock, right? And it says there was a stone, and he cut out. You know, Peter was a stone, Christ was a rock. And upon this rock I'll build my church. And it smote the image, break it, and it filled the whole earth, right? It became the kingdom, because only one kingdom will last forever, and it's the kingdom of God. Notice in verse 37, thou, O king, art the king of kings. So he started to explain now to the king what is the image, or what does each piece represent. So then he says, this image you saw with multiple layers to it, it says the first part of it is the head of gold. It says, thou, O king, are the king of kings. So there has been no king that ever reigned on the earth that has been as excellent of Nebuchadnezzar, for multiple reasons you've heard, because of the various different wonders that he had in Babylon, and because of his greatness. God referred to him as the King of Kings. And here in Daniel, and I think is also in either Ezekiel or Jeremiah, God referred to him as the King of Kings. So Nebuchadnezzar is the King of Kings. It is him that is golden, ironically enough. Not the empire per se only, but it's him himself is golden. Seem very special person. For the God of heaven had given thee a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the heaven, hath he given into thy hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou, notice here, fascinating, thou art the head of gold. Literally, the kingdom start with a head, and literally saying, your head is the head. It's a golden head. Can't imagine what that is like, right? And if you think about it, he was so good at what he does that he did so many different wonderful things. Evil is conquest. God told him by one of the prophets, I'm going to pay you back for your conquest. You did an excellent job. You just destroyed those evildoers. Excellent job. I'll pay you back, right? You didn't get payment for the work you did. And God says, look, I owe you some money, right? Can't imagine. Because what was he? He was the battle axe for God. He brought punishment on evildoers, even Israel. Israel became so wicked that God has sent Nebuchadnezzar to remove the righteous out of it. It was a rescue, right? Keep that in mind, because at the last study we're going to do, by God's grace, September, I'm going to be covering Revelation 16 when I'll come back to that thought. Fascinating stuff here. Now, verse 39, and after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee. So what we're noticing here, and I've said this before because I thought this was a fascinating thought when it first came to my mind, that gold is very expensive and rare and can't rust, and don't rust per se, but it is not very good for practical use. By the time we get down to where we're at, which is iron and then iron mixed with clay, what we find is very practical, especially when we talk about our construction or high-rise buildings, everything, iron mixed with clay. Very practical, but the value is not there. The value is in the practicality. So those kingdoms, they're very pretty. It's like the kingdom of Solomon, very pretty, all fluffy and nice. But in practical, it's a lot of intellectual, talk. By the time we come here, we have life where things are very practical, but the value is in sheetrock. Say a building costs $1 million, it's sheetrock and, gypsum and cardboard and paper and some I-beams. It's very functional, but its value is in the function, not in the ornamentation, right? The ornamentation is what they have value in. So we notice as we go down, we're going from softer material, very valuable, very rare, to material that's very functional but not very ornamentation orientated. So the kingdom is inferior, all right? And another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over the earth. Now, I'll pause there again. I want to point out something to you. When you look at the kingdoms, and we're going to go a little bit into this again, not too much, because as I say, we're going to zip through skip some things that we would have to study. When you look at the kingdom again, you notice there's Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome. You get conversion story out of Babylon. You get conversion story out of Media, Persia, like the book of Esther, right? Is there any conversion story out of Greece? Is there any conversion story out of Rome per se? Now, Paul says that there were some Christians in Rome, and the Christian church became the center point. But what you get some more your specific stories more out of where? Out of Babylon and out of Greece. Now, by the time you come to Media Persia, sorry. By the time you come now to Rome, you're closing off the Bible. Christ died, you're closing off the Bible, and Rome went on for another 500 and something years. Or should I say less, because then they broke up, and 400 and something, and so forth. Somewhere in there, 3 something out, and then they broke up, and then it continued to papal Rome from pagan Rome. I want to point, because you're going from superior to inferior, and things get inferior. It gets more barbaric. You see what I'm saying? You go from Babylon, and you go from Babylon to more barbaric. So it's not just inferior in metal, it's also inferior in behavior. All right? It's a total rejection of God. Nebuchadnezzar converted, you never hear of the season and stuff like that. By the time Constantine converted, it's pure paganism. It's pure nonsense. All right, I'm just pointing that out to you there. Notice here, which shall be a rule over all the earth. And a fourth kingdom shall be what? Strong as iron. For as much as iron do what? Now I have a whole study I'm going to do on this verse, verse 40. And there's another verse in Daniel 7. Notice here, it breaketh in pieces, it subdueth all things, and as iron breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. Notice here, now, it spent more time talking about Nebuchadnezzar. And what does it say about Nebuchadnezzar? He has a what? He's a golden head. What does it say about this fourth kingdom? He spent a lot of that time telling you something about this fourth kingdom. This fourth kingdom is unique. Right? I remember Ellen G. White says, when we're talking about kingdom, the people are in view. Right? And I'll share some of those quotations in a few. The people are in view. These are not kingdom. Remember, I was explaining to somebody that when you study the Bible, symbol equal reality. Most people teach prophecy, and you can watch me over the next 10 Sabbaths that I'm going to cover this in the next quarter. Not every Sabbath we're going to do this, but 3 Sabbaths I'm going to take a little break, and tomorrow's going to do AY. So when we do this in the next 12 weeks, what you will notice here is that I'm going to always show you that symbols in the Bible, when symbol is applied, I'm going to read the Ellen G. White quotes to you. And when a symbol is applied, we do not take a symbol and create another symbol. We're taking a symbol as a clue to tell you to look for a reality. Does that make sense? So, but most people teach prophecy, sometimes what they'll do to not face hard facts, because it sometimes is not complementary, right? Is take a symbol and turn it into another symbol. If a symbol is implied, we always say the symbol is telling you about some clue about a kingdom. There's something about the kingdom, and the kingdom has to represent the people in the kingdom, that they do this behavior. I'm going to show definitively that this text here is the history of the world from the Roman Empire of existed. The Roman Empire is one of the key features of the Roman Empire, and the papal Roman system and the Italian system is that they break in pieces kingdoms and people. They're masterful at dividing. I'll show you in a few minutes here. So notice here, but it's not a study, but I introducing some concepts to you. So you break it in pieces and it bruises. When you bruise something, you know you can see that it got a hit and there's blood beneath the skin, but they're not bleeding. People is broken up and whatever. Notice here, I'm going to show you something, because remember we're talking about what happened at the end, right? This is where we're going. We're talking, it's present truth, but I want you to bring up the speed. So what would be, and I'm going to make sure note that the head of gold is Babylon, which is modern day Iraq. Then the Medes and the Persians, which would be Iranian, and one of the I think it's the Persians were stronger. I'll clarify that in the upcoming weeks. Then there's Grecian, which is today modern Greece. And then there is Rome, which is Italy in our modern day. And then after that is papal Rome, papal Rome, which is the papacy. And then I'll still explain some more in a second. So notice here, I'm going to read this. So what would be the condition of Europe after the breakup of the Roman Empire? So when we talk about Europe, what we're talking about is the Eastern European Empire, not the Western, the Western European Empire, not the Eastern European Empire. So the Western European Empire are countries like Portugal, Spain, England, Germany, France, so forth. The Eastern European Empire are places like the Baltic region, places like Turkey, places like Romania, whatever. So you get that? Right, Ukraine, stuff like that. So there's two different parts of what we call Europe, right? So when we say the 10 toes, we're talking about the 10 Western European empires, right? Specific, because somebody said, well, there are all these empires. No, it's not all the same. We're just talking about those specific parts of what we call Europe. So notice in Daniel chapter 2, verse 41, it says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. So that's the next development. So first you have the gold, the silver, the brass, the iron, and then the iron and clay. But there shall be in the strength of the iron. What was the iron monarchy? It's Roman Empire, or what we call today modern Italy. You know, part of modern Italy was even part of it until one of the kingdoms got plucked up. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. So people get into this discussion about what do you mean miry clay? I just say, look, it's miry clay. So it's just clay. What we have to the outside, what you call cement or brick or whatever you call it. So the strength of a building that's built with clay, cement, brick, what's the strength of the building? It's in the steel structure. Right? It's a steel structure. You see they do it all the time. They redo a bridge and they just basically clean up the iron, paint it over, you know, and the bridge is good for another 25 year, 30 year. You don't have to touch it again. That's the strength of it. But you normally have the base and the girders and everything like that. It's set in cement, right? And that today is our modern system that makes us function. You know, we fly with iron birds and stuff like that. Now notice here, verse 42, and as much as the toes, so normally we say toes, at this point here, it doesn't say 10 toes, right? But we know, normally, unless something is different with you, you normally have 10 toes. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly be what? Broken. Now you can see this today. It is not as strong, and how you say it is not as dangerous as what you call the Roman Empire back in the time of the Caesars, but it still has strength. Continue reading verse 43. And where much thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seeds of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron not mixed with clay. Now, many people believe because they're trying to mingle churchcraft at this point in European history, which we'll go over some of this again in the future with some timeline. They try to mix churchcraft with statecraft, and it doesn't work. Also, many point out that they try to mix because it's a mixing the seeds of men. They tried to do marriages. They're trying to do various different things to make Europe come back together. So at this point here, what the Bible is describing, which is say we'll cover some more of this to add, and just trying to go over this in time, is that what's happening is that after the 10 Western European Empire under Rome broke apart, then the 10 of them broke apart, and then they try now under the Pope primarily to come back together as one. This was not able, because number one, what happened, they started fighting, and then the Pope instructed countries like France to destroy 3 of the empires, plot them up by the root. We'll read that in a few minutes. And then they tried to do alliances, marriages, wars with even people like as late as recently as Adolf Hitler, his name is, and tried to bring Europe back together. Just Europe can never come back together. Recently, they tried to do what we call European Union. That never worked because Britain say they're going to get out of the Union. When they did the Dark Ages, it was Britain again in 1600, 1500, decided they're going to break from the Catholic Church. They tried to do the euro, but Britain would never accept it. They kept their pounds. Eh? That's why we have a King James Bible, 1611 King James Bible, because whatever. So we're going to go over some of that history in the future. But I just want to say this text here is always and is solid. But the strength of them is still there, right? So that's what I'm saying. Even though we're talking about rich, poor, but really what we're talking about is one set of group of people, and this is who is in charge. Because if you make it rich and poor, then what happens? You don't, the tech, everything that you can't study the prophecy going forward. Because the prophecy is saying these people, this geographical location, this behavior. The behavior is very specific. And that's what I show in future study. So notice here Daniel 7, verse 23 now. Daniel 7, verse 23. We'll take you a little bit out of Daniel 2, and I'm going to come back to Daniel 2 in a second. Daniel 7, verse 23 and 24. Notice here, would Europe ever seek to unite? So this is the question here now, right? So where we at, this is bringing us to speed. As I say, I had to cover some of that because I just wanted to bring us to here. Now remember, what we're looking at right now is, at this point here, there is this concept here of, in front of us, this idea of a mark of the beast, where there's a one world financial system, and those who don't comply with its religious tenet, because remember, there's the iron and clay. There's this churchcraft and statecraft in the system, where there is this system here, and in this system, it is trying to cleave together, but the Bible said they'll never cleave together. And part of it is because iron and clay don't work together, right? And there's a lot of thoughts here. So let's just do this, right? Thus he said, Daniel 7, verse 23, the fourth beast now, because this is where we're dealing with as human beings in our history currently. The fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom upon the earth. So now it's describing the fourth kingdom. We know this fourth kingdom, and all Bible scholars, if you go online, go on Wikipedia, just type in the kingdoms in Daniel 2. And what are you going to come up with? Almost everybody accept the fact that it is Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Rome, as what we call modern day Italy, with the capital being Rome, is the fourth kingdom. And Rome ruled the world, even at a time when Christ was alive, with the other 9 entities that we call the Western European Empire. Not the Eastern, not Russia. We're talking about this group of people here. So notice here, thus he says, the fourth kingdom, which is Western Europe, and in the future I'm going to make sure to type in Western Europe. Beast, the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all the kingdoms. So is it different from the kingdoms that before it? Right? So it's diverse. Now, all the kingdoms are diverse. Remember, the Babylon is different from because Babylon is big. The big move in Babylon is the astrologers, the magicians, the whatever. When we come to the Medes and the Persian, its key identity is the law of the Medes and the Persian never change. Right? So Babylon as astrologers and magicians, they when Medes came on the scene, they took that characteristics and they embraced it. When now Medes and the Persian, the Iranian came, they took the characters of the Babylonian, which is next door neighbors really, and they embraced it. Now, after the Medes and the Persian came off the scene, their uniqueness was they have laws that never break. So now the Grecian took those characters of the two previous kingdoms and they wrapped it up and make a greater civilization, so to speak. And their greater concept now is that they are intellectual, they are scholarly. They're philosophers and their mythology. And so that's what Greece gave to the world. It didn't give to the world anything else in the sense of Greek mythology and Greek philosophy. But here's the thing, when I'll cover it in a second. So we go now, by the time we come to Rome, Rome absorbed the first three kingdoms and took their main attributes and make, you want to call it, a greater kingdom. But their thing that they brought to the scene is that they're different, although they absorb these things. But now they're viewed as they're really different from the other first two kingdoms. Here, why? Notice what the emphasis the Bible says. They shall devour. Right? Now remember when he described Daniel described Babylon, he says he shall cut all the birds, how did he say it again? All the beasts of the field and the flowers, it's going to be under your control. What does it describe the iron? Devour, right? Notice it's a total different description for it.
It seems like the Roman Empire was very military feasible.
Yeah, you see that? But all of them Babylon was military.
Yeah, but in Rome, it's just they perfected.
That's what they perfected. They perfected. That's what they had. You have to hold it one time.
Yeah, and Rome perfected the art of torture,
Conquest.
of conquest, of military strategy. They can dispatch troops within a very quickly amount of time, build roads that were very practical in their building. And to show their strength, they will build the road, get their army over, and just destroy it.
Right.
To let the enemy know that we're here to stay. They were just very intimidating. It was just, for me, I see it, the Rome different.
Right. And that's what the Bible says. The Lord and inspiration tell Daniel, it is diverse from all the three that came before. And what it does unique and it brings to the world is this concept. Because think about it, when you think about the world over, where do they go to learn warfare? Who do they go to lead out in warfare still to this day? It is this element that makes them so unique. Notice here, they devour. No, no talk about, the birds of the air and the trees of the field, they're going to be in your, no. Because remember, Nebuchadnezzar loved gardens, right? The old earth, and shall tread it down. You're going to see this word used again when we do that study about six or seven Sabbaths from now, when we talk about the papal system. Tread down and break it in pieces. Now, we have said this before, and I said we'll show some of this on the maps in the future, that when you look at Africa, it was less divided. There were big kingdoms in Africa. And what Rome did, they just went in and broke it in pieces, pop it in pieces. And when you think about Africa today, what you think about? You think about basically different ones of the seven horns, taking it and just break it in pieces and say, this kingdom, name it this, name it that, name it that. What they do to South Africa, South America, Central America, the Caribbean, they just break it in pieces.
But they also conquered too.
Well, that's how they do it, because again, that's what they bring to the world, through the conquest. But it's conquest of brutality. Yeah, it's a level of brutality where they're not congenial. It's just, that's what they bring to the world. Notice verse 24. And notice here now the word 10 is used. And the 10 horns out of his kingdom are what? Are what? 10 kings, right? You see that? So the 10 horns are 10 kings. So what you're looking for is, when you look in the Western Empire before they plucked up, and that's later on, right? It says it in the end of the verse. There's 10 kings, right? So if you know the 10 kings, you know Seven of them for now are seven of the kingdoms. So Germany, as I say, Portugal, Spain, whatever. So these 10 entities, which is what we call the Western European Empire, including Italy, this is what they're used to. Now, again, this is unique to them because this is not the way how the Eastern European Empire functioned. It's not the way how Russia functioned. This is the way how they function as a unit in themselves. This is their master the art to divide and conquer. Notice here, and the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. So it's saying here that within the 10 European empires, there's going to rise a king that's going to come up that's going to be different from the 10 kings that are already there. And he's going to make sure to destroy 3 of the 10 kings. So this is tribal warfare, right? So European tribal warfare back in the 300 years plus after Christ, about I think 328 or something like that, 300 years of Christ up to 538. The tribal warfare led to 3 of the kings of Europe being killed, destroyed, their kingdom being rooted up, and they've been destroyed, right? So these are the global dominating. This was done on the basis of the request of the Pope, right, the Bishop of Rome. And he became now one of the kings in Europe, controlling what we call modern-day Italy. And he reigned for 1,260 years. Now, continue reading here. Daniel 2, go back to me with me, Daniel 2. Just giving you a quick overview, and I have a few more verses to go here. Daniel 2, verse 44. Just read Daniel 2, verse 44, me. So what is the final kingdom to have rule over the world? Daniel 2 verse 44 says, and in the days of these kings, so which kings? These kings that rule from Europe. Now somebody will say, well, if in the days of these kings, how does America come in? And I'll read it and show you in a second. Because remember, what is America? What is America? America is basically a child of Europe, of the Western European Empire. America is not a child of Ukraine or Romania or Bosnia or Turkey. Is a child of the Western European Empire. Why do people come to America? Escape what? From who? From the Tsar of Russia? From some leader in India? Right? Who are they escaping from? See, it's important to know this. What I'm saying is very specific. We're not talking about just anything. We're talking about who are they escaping from? Eh? They're escaping from the Iron Monarchy. Now, which specific which leader in the Iron Monarchy was it? Was it the Pope? They were trying to escape from? No. Right, which? Who?
The same kingdom, the British.
The British?
That they're running from because when you think about they were being oppressed, and even look at when they went to war, even with the British, it was a war to take them back to that same oppression.
Right, because if they had lost the war, there's not a civil war, the revolution. If they had lost it, what would have happened? They'd have gone back to the system, right? So that's some important thing we're going to study in the future. So notice here, and in the days of these kings, the God of heaven. So that means when we come to the end time, who is still in charge of the world? Who's still running the world? It's the same Western European entity and basically America. We'll show in a second, right? Which shall, and the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. So I remember years back, and I said this here before, I was talking to somebody who is an American who became Buddhist, and she was arguing that China is going to take over. And I say, it ain't going to happen. Now I didn't tell her why, but I said, look, it ain't going to happen. She say, oh yeah, but China is so much rich and China is coming up and they're going to become number one. And I'm like, with the starving millions they have over there. And I say, it ain't going to happen. No, I didn't know coronavirus was coming. All right, I didn't know all of that stuff was coming, but I knew it was coming. In other words, I knew it was coming. I just didn't know exactly how, because China was going to become number one. Because if China became number one, if you think we have problems now, you can imagine what kind of problem we have. Because remember, China, at least when you talk about Western European Empire, what is synonymous with Western European Empire? Christianity. Even though it's a lot of hypocrisy and they use Christianity to extend their power and to continue to justify the brutality that they do. But China would just do the brutality with not even any weakness, because at least there's a weakness in the system because of Christianity. But what would hold China back? Nothing. It'd just be straight up brutality, because that's what they do to their citizens. You know, you talk about some of the biggest famines in the world happen in China, some of the biggest mass murder and genocide happen in the world. It happened in the Asian countries.
But they focus on Hitler.
Say it again. Sorry.
They focus a lot on Hitler, but if you go study the history of China, you would say that, oh, okay, China was worse.
Explain to
Hitler.
nobody.
Well, there was a specific leader. I think his name is Mao.
Yeah, and Mao, and then there's there's a lot of Genghis Khan. There's so much. Yeah. So you could not imagine. So they by God's grace, no. Jesus needs to come. It's enough of enough. But notice here, it shall not be left to other people. So there is no nothing after Europe and America. There's gonna be no global leader called Nigeria or Kenya. Or not gonna happen. Sorry, black people. So, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Next kingdom after this is the kingdom of heaven, right? Notice in Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 through 34, it says, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divided his shepherd from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them under his right hand, come ye, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. So we know the second coming, that the next kingdom that comes is the eternal kingdom. But notice this here, what I'm going to read from Daniel 7. Let's go to Daniel 7. I want to read a few verses out of the beginning of Daniel 7. And notice, because again, I just want to outline for you here the process of events, just so we can lay a generic thing. And remember, if you want to ask questions online, you can do so for a few minutes after I finish, just in case there's some things I need to flesh out before we go, because we're going to jump into jump over a few things and go straight into some study, deeper into deep water. Notice in Daniel 7 verse 1, it says here onward, it says, in the first year of Belteshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and a vision on his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matter. So now Daniel is getting a dream. So now it's not Daniel trying to interpret a dream as in Daniel chapter 2. This is now Daniel himself getting a dream. Now the dream is getting, as you're going to see real quickly, it's a similar dream. It goes from the king of the animals or the jungle to inferior animals, but still all the animals are what we call grasping and rapacious and greedy, predatory animals. Now that's important to note, because we're going to study Daniel Revelation, and what we're going to notice is that all the animals are referred to as beasts, but they're beasts that are rapacious. You know, keep that in mind, right? So notice here, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. So sea in prophecy, which we'll cover when we do some more study, always represent an area in the Bible that is very, we call it, highly populated, densely populated. The densest populated area in the world is right over there, Europe, Middle East area, North Africa, the most densest populated area when it comes on to geographical landmass. All right, so notice here, there are 4 winds. That means east, west, north, south. The winds are blowing, all right? And Daniel spake and said, I see this great wind, and there's striving. That means that there's tension we understand this from studying history and prophecy, that this is representing of what? War, right? So there's war, because what is the war is about? What are the war about? Power, right? Control, right? So that's when I said earlier that there's this group of people fighting for control, and they're trying to hold on to control, and that's what it's all about. Because if you're in control, you're trying to keep other people from having the ascendancy, because you want to be number one. Remember, these people are not converted, so they're rapacious. Notice here, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another, so they're different from another. So what we're looking at for, he's saying basically, is clues to say this is different from that one, and that is different from that one. You got to look at the markings of the beast to know which beast is what and how it behaves, right? So first was like a what? A lion, right? And had eagle's wings, right? So first was like a lion, and it had eagle's wings. So normally an eagle represents something that is rapacious and that is predatory. And a lion represents something that is rapacious and predatory. These are things that hunt. Would you say that's true throughout history? Right. They're hunting. They're basically wild animals. They're not lamb. Right? They're not ox. I beheld till the wings thereof was what? Plucked out. So it's a rapacious animal and it has a wing. This is a feature, right? And this feature and this animal represent Babylon. And it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on his feet as a man. And a man's art was given to it. This, if my memory serves me correct, would represent the conversion of the Babylonian system. Daniel was working in it. It became something that, is this rapacious anymore? Right? See, something went wrong, right? Well, it probably went good. We read the Bible, it's a good thing. Notice verse 5, and beheld another beast. Notice here, all of them are referred to as what? Beasts, right? Because what is a beast? A beast, this is something that is going to attack and eat and do stuff. It's like a bear. Now, bear, you would not put up a bear up against a lion, right? So then notice there's an inferiority going on, right? Until you get to that fourth beast. But anyhow, and it raised up itself on what? On one side, and he had 3 ribs in his mouth, of it between his teeth of it. I read that bad. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour, and eat much flesh, because these are flesh-eating animals. So where we note is that the Medes and the Persians, they were at one group was stronger than the other group. If my memory serves me correct, it's the Persians were stronger than the Medes. And so it was raised up on one side because one had the ascendancy. And also it had 3 ribs in the mouth, because the reason why it had conquered Babylon, and Babylon was divided into 3 provinces: Babylonia, Lydia, and Egyptia. So that's from North Africa into the Middle East. And that's what Babylon was. And it conquered Babylon, so it had Babylon in its mouth. Does that make sense? If I could put my 3 finger in my mouth, right? He had Babylon in his mouth. And so you notice he took on Babylon, and he kept Babylon, and he continued the forms of Babylon. How do you know this? Even remember, Daniel was working for Babylon, and then what did Daniel continue doing? Continue working for Medes and the Persians. So the system just continued. It just basically absorbed it and took it in, and then add its own culture to the mix, and then moved on. Then next, after this I beheld, lo, another like a leopard, which had upon his back of it 4 wings of a fowl, and the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given it. So we talked about this now. Leopard normally, I guess, is faster. This is represented Alexander the Great. He has 4 kings, and it divided after Alexander died. And there in Daniel 11, we get the concept of the king in the north, king in the south. And verse 7, after this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly, and it stamped exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had what? 10 horns. So once again, every time we come to the fourth beast, what do we get? What do you notice with the fourth beast when every time the Bible writes about the fourth beast? It shows that it's diverse and it gives you more information about it. Because there's something unique and it's telling you, look again, I'm going to tell you again, I told you in Daniel chapter 2, I'm going to tell you here again that it's different from all these beasts are different from each other. But this beast, there's something different that I want you to notice. Notice again, because this is where we're living under. And this is the last 10 and now 7 kings that will exist until the Lord come. Notice here, and after this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast. And what is it described as? It's a beast, but it's what? Dreadful and terrible. Notice here, this is specifically given to it. Now, all beasts are always, if you look at the word rapacious, they're always very grasping, greedy. They're aggressive animal. They're predatory animal. They're unclean also, right? So there's something unique about this beast that you got to see and understand. That when you look at this behavior, remember, Rome for sport would have slaves murdered each other for freedom, right? For entertainment. What we call NFL is lightweight in comparison to what they would do. They'll have animals eat the slaves and for fun. So when we're talking about, this was a level of violence and brutality that the King of Kings himself was brutalized by Rome. It is very unique that the Bible says, look, I want you to get this, because when my son come, it's coming under the Caesar's reign, and they're going to give it to him. They are unique, and this is, as Andrew said, it's the people are in view. Now notice here, and it is great iron teeth, and it devour. Notice here again, I will do a study just on this. It's exceedingly strong, right? Because this is strong. I mean, you can't, because you notice what's the response. Because somebody said, well, like, how serious is this? Notice this, right, as an example, real quick. We're getting there. The Constitution says you have a right of redress of grievance. And the police is supposed to protect that right. The soldiers are supposed to protect the right. It's supposed to protect the state, to protect it against all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? There's another way it says it, right? Then you have the police. They're supposed to protect your civil rights, right? The Constitution, right? The right says you have a right to come to the government and have a redress of grievances. You can come to government and say that. You go there and protest. Now, they were burning stuff down in other places. In Washington, D.C., they were protesting. And what does the political power say? It says, bring in the 82nd Airborne. What are the 82nd Airborne known for? Heavy fighting, right? And what he says, he said, we are law and order, and we're going to put them down. Now, who are they going to put down? Somebody say, oh, it's the protesters. No, it's the kids of the generals, of the senators, of the concubine for the Congress people and the senators, the kids of those people. It's some of their kids that just probably don't have the last name. They were going to put them down. And what happened? There's a cry. Some people say, no, you can't do that. I mean, you can't do that against your own people. That's my child. What would have happened in the time of the Caesars? They'd have put them down. They'd have put them down. You know what stopped it? Is that element in the system, that element of religion. It's a weakness in the system. No, and that's what it is, a simple weakness. Because you could have stopped all this long time. You know with this coronavirus, you could stop it. You know how you could stop coronavirus? Everybody that gets tested positive, just kill them. You could just stop it. You get tested positive, you get your neck chopped off. Will you stop it? I guess. But that's what it is. It's just because you could take any logical argument and you could just go rapacious with it, and you could say, I could fix this about any problem, right? We could just declare there will be no more financial disaster. If you lose your job, we just take you outside and we shoot you. You could say we will not have to pay any Social Security anymore. We don't kill all the people that are on Social Security. We euthanize them. Is that strength? I guess. But it's barbaric. You could just go as barbaric as they can think. And that's what many people say, why can't we do that? right? Because that's what they were saying, give it to granny and open up the economy. You see what I'm saying? They were saying it, give it to granny and open up the economy. Let whoever die, die, and then whoever live, live. With no concern by, well, could we try to do something to save them? No. And then people said, no, you can't do that. It's because any country can do that. No, do they do that in other foreign countries? Yeah. They chop people hand off and chop people head off all day long. And then finally they kill the wrong people. So, you're going to say, brother? Hello, sir.
Again, going back to China, I've seen some history writings where they were telling the people of their Yeah, no, it's the battery one.
Okay, just let Daniel change it for you.
No, China.
Yeah, go ahead.
Took care of the opium addiction problem by killing a lot of people.
Or just do like what Dirty was doing, right? In Philippines. You remember in Philippines? Guess who loved Dirty? Donald Trump loved Dirty, right? Because what you do?
You just kill the people who are causing problems.
Scare the people causing problems, or we fix the problem. Did you get fix the problem? What normally happens, you send it underground, right? And it continues, but you say, well, it's underground, so I don't care. But I look strong, right? You just send them in hiding. But they didn't go nowhere. I mean, they go somewhere, they're not in the public view. You put them in the back burner somewhere. You take all your poor and you put them in certain areas. I won't tell you where the area is. Right? You put them in certain areas so nobody can see them, and then they disappear. You stop testing. If you stop testing, the disease just disappear. Would the disease disappear?
That's how Rome continues.
Rome continue. So notice here, I'm going to read for you again. Notice here, exceedingly strong. It's not compassionate, but it's strong. And it had great iron teeth. Notice here now, remember when we read Daniel, what was the iron monarchy? Is it working? Oh, it was just dead, right? Yeah, those batteries are a fraud. Just tell Brother Green that. So, it has great iron teeth. So when we say iron teeth, is this a clue? What is it a clue to? What is the clue to the iron teeth? Great iron teeth. What we read about earlier that had iron. Rome, right? So we see now very practical, right? Very practical. Hard bite. And they said they have rubber teeth, they have iron teeth. It devour and break in pieces. Notice here, what does it say next here? And it stamped the residue, right? So residue is something that's whatever is left over, right? Now, who was it going to stamp? Which residue was it going to go after? What was Nero known for? Persecuting Christians, right? With his feet. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had what? 10 horns, right? So we know this is not Ukraine and the Baltic region. This is not this. So you're probably wondering why I keep saying it's not Ukraine and the Baltic region, not Russia and all that. Because I want to say it's not about skin color or genetics. It's about a certain mindset. It's nurture over nature. Does that understand what I'm trying to say? No? Write a question and ask me, what are you saying? So notice here, I'm going to read for you again because I want you to get this, right? That the last year says, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. So just in case you missed it and it says it's diverse, then it's tell you again it's diverse. So the beast before it. So it's not like Babylon. It's really different from Babylon, the Media, Persia, Greece. It's different the way it does business. And it has 10 kings. So we got to know where those 10 kings are, and we'll do that in the future. Notice verse 8. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them a what? A little horn, what we call today modern day Vatican, which is the papacy, the Pope, whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a what? Man. Now remember with Babylon, he had the eyes of a man in it. And he stand up, he became like a lion that stand up. And notice here it says, and mouth speaking great things. So this is a key and a clue. We go back in history and say, which is a king that came up that's different from all the 10 kings before it in Europe? Because we know that we're in Europe now. And which is different, and it has a man speaking, manly thing, 666 things, and it speak great things, which is the youth, and the youth say, which is the Pope. We'll prove that in the future, right? Putting out some things here. All of this we're putting out here. I think 2 more set of texts here to go. Revelation chapter 13, verse 11. And then we're going to go to 1 more set of texts after this, and then we're going to go to the closing of Daniel 2. So Romans chapter 11, just a quick overview of the kingdoms here. Revelation, wrong R. Revelation chapter 13, verse 11 and 12. So here, remember now, so we did Babylon, Media Persia, Greece, Rome. Then we did the papacy, which is a little horn. All right? And then we, in the future, we're going to go over this in a chart form. And then I delete the chart form so I don't go too long here. And then now we're into Rome again, but this is Rome before and after the deadly wound. We won't go in all this detail because we do Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 through, just give me a second here. Sorry. Okay. So let me do this real quick. I have to go to Revelation chapter 13, verse 1. That's what I wanted to read. I'm going to read verse 13 and something in a second. I just copied, I guess I deleted a slide by accident. So next beast is the same beast. It's the Roman entity, but I'm doing Revelation chapter 13 next, and I deleted a slide by accident. And I'll read verse 1, 2, and 3. So this is now describing the beginning part. As I say, I'm going to do a whole study on this Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 through 10. So right now, I'm just going to read the first 3 verses just as an overview of the main kingdoms and the sequence of events. So notice here, I stood up on the sand of the sea, and I saw beasts rise up out of the sea. So sea again represent a populated area. I believe this is in that section of the world, and having 7 heads. So notice what we just read in Revelation, Daniel chapter 7. He said he had 10 horns and 3 were plucked up, or 10 kings, 10 horns, 10 kings, 10 powers, 3 were plucked up by a little horn. So here now, this is the little horn. Next level now, next step is this is after the first 3 were plucked up. So notice he has out of the sea, and he has 7 heads. So a head represent what? A leader. So that means 3 of the leaders' head are gone. And he has 10 horns. So a horn represents a power. And so he has the power, but the heads are plucked up, they're gone. And upon his horns are 10 crowns. So the territory is there. Sometime in this situation, the parliament is there, but there's no head. The head represents to whoever crown that had conquered them. And upon his head, the name what? Blasphemy, right? So when he speak, or when the system speak, it's a whole system. Because remember, normally we studies, people will say this represent the papacy only. But remember, it still has how many heads? 7 heads, right? So this is Europe, Western European Empire being led by the papacy, which is the little horn, the most prominent horn. But the other horns are still there, the leadership are still there. Notice here verse 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. So we have a leopard beast. Which was a leopard beast? Which is a leopard beast? Greece, because speed, right? A leopard also has spots. So what does that spot represent? I believe the spot represents the educational system, which is the philosophy and the mythology of the Grecian system. And notice here, he has leopard, is if I could find my place here. So, yeah, okay, I scrolled. So the beast was like unto a leopard, and his feet was like on the feet of a bear. So we find here that it's the Mede and the Persians right there. And his mouth was the mouth of a lion, which represent the Babylonian system. So notice it has these systems, right, in it, right? It does not, the system is still there. So when we talk about the Daniel statue, and he said the stone came and hit the statue, and it took out the gold, the silver, the brass, and the iron, because the system is still there. It is just absorbing the system. Think about it, when you go to school, what's one of the biggest things they teach? Mythology, Greek philosophy, evolution is one of the mythology. All right, Marvel Comics, what is Marvel Comics? It's Greek mythology, is these mutants and all this foolishness that they teach people. So notice here, and the beast you saw his leopard and his mouth, the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, who? The dragon, which is the devil, the whole serpent, Satan, gave him his seat and great authority. Now, how did that happen in practicality? In practicality, that the Caesars, this brutal entity, when it was waning in power, and we're going to cover what made the Caesars and the Roman system fell. When it was waning in power, it turned over the power to the church. And the bishops got the power, and the bishop started to run and rule Rome, right? And then rule basically Europe and then the world. So what happened there? Because of the corruption and the brutality took it down, right? Now, this is significant. We're going to study this as one whole afternoon. Because what is causing us to have the most money and most indebtedness and loss is brutality, right? Brutality, the thing itself that makes it great is the thing that takes it out. Look at the national debt. Most of it is because of war in Iraq and all these wars. All these unfunded wars. You just fight, you can't stop just being rapacious. But is breaking the bank, right? So that Caesar now, he abdicated the Rome, and he turned it over to the bishops of Rome, and they become now the civil and the religious authority. This is a disaster. And then he moves to Constantinople, which is modern-day Turkey. And he turned over his seat and great authority. But remember, the Roman Caesar's seat and great authority was barbaric and brutal. Now the church is in charge of that seat and authority. And what does the church use it to do? What is the history of Rome? What's the history of the Europe? It was war. Who were they killing primarily? They were killing just Christians, right? But in what territory were they doing most of their killing? Right there in Europe. Where else were they doing the killing? In the rest of the Middle East, in the rest of the world. It was just barbaricness under the guise of the bloodstained banner of Jesus Christ, right? So we're going to talk about that. And I think it's next Sabbath we're going to talk about. We're going to jump right into that. What happened? Because this is all they did. Notice here. Great authority. And I saw one of his head. Now, I could, as I say, I've said this before, I could bring 100 people who teach prophecy, and they cannot discern this text. They don't understand this text. They can't see the wisdom in it. Notice here, how many heads were wounded? No, that was in Daniel 7. Here, no. How many heads were wounded? One. Which person got arrested and caught to prison and died in prison? This is the Pope. So what happened to the sixth head? What happened to the British monarchy? What happened to France? As a matter of fact, it was Napoleon trying to unite Europe with all his warmongering ways. And he decided, I said, look, we have enough of you. And then also because of the French Revolution and all that type of stuff, they arrested the Pope. So it was France who inflicted this deadly wound, right? So notice here, as I'm almost there with my overview here. So notice here, one of his head was wounded. Not all the 7 heads were wounded. And this is where many people make mistake, because when they read Daniel, Revelation chapter 13, and it says a beast right up out of the sea, and you have 7 heads, they automatically say that the Pope is the only head. So when the Pope got a wound, or the Italian church got a wound, they forget that when he got a wound, when did he get a wound? So somewhere around 1798, when America declared independence, 1776. Why did people come to America? Who were they fleeing when they came to America? They were fleeing who? They were fleeing not the Pope. They were fleeing one of the other heads. Why were they fleeing the other heads? Because all of them operate on the same principle. They were operating of the same philosophy. The principles of Rome was in their control, and they protected the principles of Rome by their military. So even though Britain was independent at the time from the papacy, in Britain continued with the oppressive regime, and what they were doing, they were murdering their own people and oppressing their own people. So their own people came to America. And then why did America have to declare independence and fight a war against Britain, not against the papacy? Because Britain was oppressing, even though Britain had the 16-level Bible, the King James Version, all the things were so powerful, beautiful, but Britain was oppressing its own people. Who was it oppressing? It was oppressing their own people. So the principles still remain because the other heads were brutal. Think about this, right? Because somebody said, well, why is this important? Why you stop here? And before I go to my closing text. Why you stop here? I stop here because this is important. Verse 3 is so important. You understand that it's 7 heads. The main head and the controlling head was the papacy, but he was ruling not by military per se, but by philosophy, by the wine. They drank the wine and the kings carry out its bidding, right? So now when we come here, over here, we can see that did they continue after they got independence from Britain with the same system of behavior? Because they believe in the same philosophy. You see the point? I'll show it in a minute. Because I'm going to go to the text on the board, and then I'm going to go to back to Daniel. So notice here, one of his head were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after what? The beast. Did America wonder after it? Right? So you duplicate, you see this beast. Remember, the beast is not just Rome. It's beast is the whole 7 system. It's France, England. Think about this right here now. If you look at the colonies, and how the colonies was run. Outside of America ran its own brutality because it was just duplicating European brutality. If you look at all the colonies, which would be one of the worst colonies outside of America to belong to? France. Every country that France run, it would make the devil proud and the Pope proud. You know what I'm saying? It is the worst. It's the worst countries that are on the face of the planet. The poorest countries, the countries that are starving, it seems the most are French colonies. So it would make but yet, what does France say? Liberty and fraternity, right? Freedom and brotherhood. I think that's what they're saying, right? Can you imagine you go to Haiti and say liberty and fraternity, and people say, well, we're hungry. Right? And we brutalize. But that's, so what it is that's, what am I trying to say? It's the 7 heads with the same behavior. You don't find that behavior in the Eastern European or stuff like that. You find that behavior more fine-tuned and just brutal in these 7 heads. And what you find is that some of them are worse than others. And you find that even the one that we run for independence from, which is Britain, it itself is brutal. Because it seemed like the manual, because what it said, the sun never set on the British Empire. So notice here, and all the world wondered after the beast. Now notice on the board here, before we go back to Daniel. Notice here now, because we're talking about global dominant empire. So the Pope dominated the world. It did all the crusades, and it divided up the world. And we're going to just look at that in the future. And you look at the maps of the world today, and it is because of Europe. Every country that's on the globe has been just about colonized, even, I would say, China. So you look at the map today, you see how the map is broken up, and you know, Kashmir, India, Pakistan. Who did all that? Some British people just like, draw a map. You ever see they draw a straight line and say, how did they do that? Just draw a straight line. Like, we have no time for this. Let's draw a line. And this is the border. And then they go, you all go fight and kill each other over it. They almost killed each other recently between India and China. No, they did kill some people. It's a joke. So notice here, Revelation chapter 13, verse 11. And notice here now, this is the last empire that rules with the 7 horns. And this empire, notice what the Bible says about this empire, which is the United States of America. And remember, the people are in view. Notice it says, and I beheld another beast. Again, I can tell you, I can bring you some of the best scholars that we have. And they're going to say, I beheld a lamb-like beast. That's what they're going to read. Right? But notice a beast is always what? It's rapacious and predatory. So notice here, I beheld a beast coming up out of the earth. The earth represents a place that is not highly populated, so it would not be Europe, it would not be the Middle East, it would not be North Africa. It would be somewhere, definitely would not be India or China. It would be somewhere that is not highly populated. And we believe that this is the shores of the United States, which we physically locations we stand today. And the beast now, which represent a kingdom that is rapacious and predatory, coming up out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb. Now, the horns are like a lamb. Now, most people just say, almost everybody I know, they'll read it, the beast is lamb-like. They say, I see another lamb-like, I see a lamb-like beast. No, it says it's a beast. All of it always references a beast coming up out of the earth. And he has 2 horns. Now, the horns are like lamb. Ellen G. White explained and history explained very clearly that the 2 horns represent the 2 powers in America. One is Protestantism, one is Republicanism. One represents the state, one represents the church. When you listen to the church, you listen to the state, they sound very beautiful. The state states that all men are created equal and they're given unalienable rights, the rights to pursue life, liberty, and to pursue happiness. And that's all the state says. The state says that your First Amendment right is that you have the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of all these things, to assemble, to protest, not to burn buildings down, but also you have a right to ask your government for redress of grievance, and the government causes a lot of grievance. So he had 2 horns like a lamb, right, this beast. The beast, when you look at the church is, think about what is America known for, is televangelists. Oh, Jesus Christ, prosperity gospel, we love you, brethren, and our bombs are coming for you. So this is it. It's the church is like the lamb, very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful mega churches. And the state tells you have all kind of rights, But notice what it says next. But he spake. What is the word spake? Is it present? Is it past tense, or is it continuous? It is something that it does. It spake as the dragon. So notice, who gave the previous beast its power? The dragon, right? Rome got the papacy got. But this beast now, it pretends, because remember what he said, these are clues to tell you about something about the people. This group of people that comes up in what we call the United States of America, they have a unique feature of them, which is that they seem very lamb-like in their powers, in the structure, in the system being the church and state. But when you notice the speaking, and I said the speaking of a nation is his legislation. So from the start of America, what did they say? You have, all men are created equal, but slaves are not human beings. They have no rights. So what is that doing? Speaking as what? As the devil. It's forked tongue. Why is that forked tongue? Because it's saying 2 things. It's duplicitous. And you notice this is the character of the people. And I believe the reason why it became duplicitous, I honestly believe it's the reason because of slavery. Slavery shaped America. And from that point forward, it always shaped America. Because it's always been a struggle to take away the rights of people that have color, to oppress, to take away, and the history, you go on YouTube, you go on Wikipedia, you go anywhere, you look at the history, you'll be like, it always forces Americans from European descent to basically speak like the devil. Because what it does, it tells them constantly that you have to claim this thing over here, that you follow Jesus, and Jesus says you should love your neighbor as yourself, but not the black people. And also not the people from West Virginia, because they're poor. And verse 12, and he exercised all the power. Come on now, you see that there? Right, so we're going to look into that in the upcoming month by God's grace. What is the power of the first? Because this is Daniel chapter 8, Daniel chapter 7. We're going to look at those chapters. We're going to get into it because we're going to say, what is the power of the first beast? And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him. So that means any power you saw that the first beast did, it does it because what does Revelation 17 says? That there is Babylon and there is this system called the fallen church and it has daughters. What is the daughters? Fallen Protestant America. We'll put all of that down there for you. You'll see all of that. So whatever you see the Catholic Church did in the Dark Ages, what happened, especially the Protestant churches of the United States, will duplicate. It will duplicate. Think about it today. What do we say? We normally say that one of the most fearsome things that the Catholic Church did was the Jesuits. What is the Jesuits famous for? But how did they do it? But how did they do it? What is the method they do it by? Infiltration. And what does the civil government do? What's the main thing? How we take down government? Espionage. Also, economic embargo. Right? It will stop you from being able to buy or sell. Let me notice about when I said Revelation 13, verse 11. Because somebody say, how powerful is this? Let me tell you something. Revelation 13:11 tells you that it has two horns like a lamb and speak as a dragon. And later on, when we look at the mark of the beast, we won't even go too much into that because it's straightforward. You either get it or not get it. Think about it. Mark of the beast. You cannot buy or sell except you have a mark or the number of the beast or the name of the beast and all that. But think about it. For years, all they have to do to not being able to be part of the American economy is to just be dark-skinned. You just get cut out of the system because you have a mark. It's just easy recognizable. Oh, I recognize you. You can't be part of our system. Because I always say that, I said, they always was under the mark of the beast, so to speak. Because you have a visible mark. It's just easy to recognize you. You can't come in our neighborhood. You can't buy. You can't do trade. You can't own businesses. And if you own business like Black Wall Street, we just burn it down and bomb it with the government. And we send in the American military to destroy it. Right? And you can't do it. And we cut you out of the system. You cannot prosper unless we tell you to prosper. And we can easily identify you. So this has always been the system. So notice, he spake, not speaking, will speak in the future. He always did. But that's why we have Jim Crow. What was Jim Crow? Was it the mark of the beast? What is Jim Crow? You can't buy or sell. You can't come and you can't drink out of fountains. You can't live in our community. You can't come to our church. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do that. And how do I know that you can't do it? Because your skin is dark. Boom. I got it. Right? It's just the system. It always does this. Now, is there coming a period of time where for religious purposes you will not be able to buy or sell? Yes. And that's what we're going to study for the false Sabbath and all that. But when that comes when the system is just about to done. I'm going to show you in a few minutes and then we close. So notice here, and he causes all the earth to dwell, then to worship the first beast who has the deadly wound and was healed. So notice he's causing people to worship the first beast. Why? Notice here again, I'm going to show you something where this is not too far because everything I'm trying to tell you is it's coming. We're getting closer and closer where it's going to be total, like total iron. Notice here what happened. Notice the current president. Who does he like? Think about it. Eh? He likes dictators because what does dictator tell you? You can have pure Adolf Hitler. Pure Adolf Hitler. You can lock kids in cages and nobody will protest. Right? But as long as you have that weakness in the system, you can't do it because they hold you back. Right? Because they say, don't do that. They say bleeding the heart, liberals. Right? But notice here, it's a peccant. Anywhere you find a Putin, a Duterte, and Kim Jong-un, it's like, I just can't, I wish I could have that. Wish I could have that. Then notice when they did the Central Park joggers and they forced to imprison those, the president never apologized for making sure those black guys get in prison. So it's not just you're brutal against innocent people. So this is what the thing is. So it exercised the power of what? The first beast. Because what was the power of the first beast? The ability to trample the residue. The ability to kill people who are righteous. They have to do wrong. But they say, no, we just kill them because they don't follow police orders. No, because you're in charge and you can brutalize what you want to brutalize. So here are some closing thoughts here. Daniel chapter 2, verse 44. Daniel 2, verse 44. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left unto a people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all the kings of the earth. Notice Daniel 7, verse 25. Daniel 7, verse 25. Notice it says here, and he shall break, and he shall speak great words against the Most High. Who is he speaking against? So if you're exercising the power of this system, who are you talking against? You're talking against God himself because you have to declare people that are innocent, that they're worthy of death. We're going to study that in Mark of the Beast study. You're going to have to declare them that they're worthy of death when they did no wrong. And you have to lie them because what is the system known for? To make boogeyman of people and then murder them. Right? Make boogeyman of people, murder them. So you have to declare them to be that says whatever. So when you speak against God's servant, you're speaking against the Most High. Remember, God says, you can't touch my prophet and do him no harm. But they said, we'll touch him and we'll do him harm because we're speaking against you. And it says, think to change what? Times and laws. Because in order for you to make Sunday holy, to honor the papacy, what you have to do? Change times and laws. So the papacy did it. Remember it says, he shall exercise all the power of what? The first beast before him. So this is part of what's coming. And they shall be given into his hand for what? Time, and the divine of time. This is what happens for the dark ages. Notice here. But the judgment shall sit. We're going to study this, I think, 2 Sabbaths from now. The judgment shall sit, or next Sabbath, I can't remember. The judgment shall sit, and they shall take away is what? Is dominion, and to consume and to destroy it unto the end. Now notice there, most people don't ever even think about this text. What this text is saying. When does the judgment sit? When did the judgment sit according to Bible prophecy? We're going to cover this in the next few weeks. When did the judgment sit? What year? 1844. So what had been happening from 1844, before 1844? The judgment has been against the system and it's taken away and consumed it. So when I started, remember I told you that there's great changes happening. There's certain people losing their power. The judgment has already sit and it's consumed and it's taken away. And notice there the word, and it shall take away its dominion, and to what? To consume and to destroy it unto the end. Because who gave it his power? Who gave it his dominion? Who gave the 7 heads their dominion, their power? It's the dragon. It's not the Lord. And somebody said, but does the Lord set up king? The Lord allows certain things to happen, but the Lord is not part of the system. You can't blame God for what they do. Think about it. The Dark Ages, when the Catholic Church and France and Germany and whatever was hunting the Waldensians and the various different Christians and the Huguenots and all these people they were hunting and murdering, was God approve of him to hunt them? No. Is God going to judge them for it? Yes. Is God going to consume and take away the dominion? Yes. So God is not into that. God was not for it. They were doing it because they were doing it for the devil. Remember, and we want to make sure note that they were doing it against their own fellow countrymen. It was they doing it against themselves. Because they were massacring their own countrymen. And God said, I'm going to judge you. And that's why we had the Dark Ages. We're going to cover that. And that's why I always say you have to understand, we're talking about the Western European Empire murdering its own people for the devil's purpose, hunting the righteous. And in the end, America is going to try to do the same thing. It's going to try to duplicate the power of Duterte and Putin and all these people. Remember recently what Putin did, outlawed Jehovah's Witness more or less. Now, as I said, we're not part of their religious group, but that's what they did. Is that right? No. But that's what they did. And that's what they want to do. So to the end, notice you see, and the kingdom and the dominions of the greatest of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. So notice here Daniel 2, to close off Daniel 2 now, verse 46. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odor unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, O, of a truth, it is that your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and revealer of secrets. He knew what he was thinking. He wanted to go on forever. Seeing thou couldest reveal this secret. So it was revealed. Then the king made Daniel a great man and gave him many gifts and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, so the main capital of the kingdom, and chief governors over all the wise men of Babylon. So Daniel now is leading the astrologers and the magicians. That had to be a fascinating job. Then Daniel requests of the king, and he said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. And Daniel sat in the gate of the king, because Daniel now is the man. Daniel 2 verse 20 again through 22. Daniel answered and said, blessed is the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changed at the times. I believe we're seeing change in times, brothers and sisters. And the seasons, we're in a different season. He removed kings and he set up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know it understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness. We don't have to see certain things that are here reported. We know what's going on. And light dwelleth with him. Some people are trying to figure out how to stay on top. We'll take any question if there's any question. 1 second, but I'll say it first. There's people who are trying to stay on top, but here's the thing. This concept here of staying on top and being brutal, It's been played, overplayed. All it is bankrupt a nation. It bankrupt, almost bankrupt Nebuchadnezzar, if that's him. It would be nice if he looked like that. If he almost bankrupt Nebuchadnezzar, God, through the prophet, begged him, told him, please just break off thy sins by showing mercy to the who now? To the poor. And what did he do? He says, nah, I'm not going to do it. And what God did, he said, I'm going to make you eat grass for 7 years. And when he wake up, he say, okay, I get it. Convert. I love Jesus. Right? All the kingdom that ever come, that's what it is. They're so rapacious that they self-implode. They say Britain, it became so rapacious, so greedy that it just fell apart. Dutch tried to do it. They didn't even South Africa. They commit suicide, basically, national suicide. All these countries, Rome did it, commit suicide. They just become so greedy and destructive because you're destroying everything till you destroy yourself. We see Hitler did it. We see all these countries do it. And America's in trouble. And instead of saying, you know what, we're going to do right by our citizens once and for all. Seems like it's made up his mind it's not going to do right. It's just going to keep going forward. There's this cry that says, please, just do right by your citizens. Look after especially those that are minority. Look after the poor people. There's a lot of poor people in Kentucky, West Virginia, all these places that need the government to do right, and they're not doing right. They're bailing out rich people. They're bailing out rich people. They keep bailing out rich people. And God says, you know, there's a time when your cup of iniquity runs full. And we see that it's getting more and more. And we know ultimately what we'll study in the future, which is going to be a major study, is when we look at what the church is doing. Because we find in the Jim Crow time, it was the church that pushed Jim Crow. We find in slavery, it was the church that pushed it. We find the war and drugs, the prison industrial. The church has been behind every wickedness that this country has done. And the church, again, has been constantly pushing for more evil. And when we say church, especially, we're talking about evangelical churches, the Southern Baptist churches. They are a source of evil and a pain to the country, just like the Catholic Church is a pain to Europe. But as you know, and Joy predicting final warning, that they too get the blow, the deadly wound that happened to the papacy by France. The pagans will give it to them. So at this time, I'll take any question, and if there's any question, then we'll take it. If not, then we'll tomorrow lead us with a song, and then we'll close. So we'll pause for a few seconds. Good afternoon, good afternoon. So next Sabbath, I have a list. I think it's the judgment set. So I pray by God's grace you'll be there. Next Sabbath at 5 a.m. And as you know, we continue with our studies on law and the spirit of the law. Brother? Oh yes, 5 p.m. a.m. would be quite exciting. I will make it, I'll be honest. Wake up too much time at that time. All right, so no questions, Sister Tamar? Because that mic does not work. The can give her a mic, that don't work? Okay, great. So with that, we'll close, Sister Tamar. No, you come back. We'll sing a song, A Sixpence. God bless you. God bless you.
Happy Sabbath. We'll turn to hymn number 511. Our closing hymn will be hymn number 511. Hymn number 511. Feel free to stand. I know not why God's wondrous grace to me hath made known, nor why just reverently bow our heads as we have the closing prayer. Dear kind, gracious Father, Lord, thank you for being with us through this Sabbath. I thank you, Lord, for the blessings you have bestowed upon us here and those online. And I'm thankful, Lord, for the things that we've learned from Sabbath school up to this very moment. I pray that you might be with us now as we are soon to end the Sabbath and go into a new week. I pray that you will strengthen us for the trials that lie ahead, and that, Lord, that the things we've discussed this day we will keep in remembrance throughout the week. I ask that you may be with us here as we leave, that you may take us safely along our way, that you will bless all those, Lord, who are listening online, that they may be invigorated and refreshed for this new week. These and many blessings I ask in your Son's name. Amen. Thank you once again for joining us for Sabbath worship. Thank you for spending the time through us up to this present time. And I pray that the Lord will be with you through this week and you will be richly blessed.